In this episode of Road to the Show, we are going to run through 10-ish memorable bikes from the 2022 show. We're getting super excited about the 2023 show, and we've been running through images and galleries, and these are some of the machines that stand out in my mind. Bike number one. Cascabel from LM Creations. This was an absolute showstopper. It was built on a Ducati Panigale. I'm pretty sure it was the only Panigale at the show, and it was a stunning handmade carbon fiber beast. And it was green and gold, which was weird for a Ducati, but the name Cascabel comes from a rattlesnake, and that was the inspiration that Luke took to build this machine. And the weave of the carbon with the colors he put on it and the bodywork, it was so sinuous. It was outstanding, and it really stuck out in my mind. Luke brought a couple of incredible machines to the show last year. He also had Hasty Flaming Buffalo, which was an Indian board tracker build. It's probably the best named bike at the show, Hasty Flaming Buffalo. But yeah, bike number one was Cascabel, and that was in a wheel of outstanding machines. There was a bike next to it, a VTR 1000 racer from Martin's Motorcycle Company. I loved that as well. Again, a donor that we didn't have any others of at the show. And on the other side of it was bike number two. Black Fury from XTR People. This was on a Royal Enfield 650 twin. But the thing about this bike for me was you don't need to look at the plaque. You see it from across the room and you know it's XTR People. We've had a few of his bikes at the shows over the years, and he has these signature touches like the battery in the tailpiece and the endurance headlights on the outside of the fairing, and this was just signature him. It was a beautiful machine. Next up, we are moving to Shed Row to look at Dog Moto's BDM1. Now, this bike really sums up what Shed Row is about. Shed Row is the heart of the show. And Ronnie, the builder of this bike, who I caught up with at the show, he built this having been inspired by coming to last year's show. And that's one of the sort of trends throughout Shed Row. It was a stunning build. It was this beautiful duck egg blue, and the details on it were immaculate. And I know it was a really cathartic process for Ronnie to build this bike, and it was a big part for him of helping with his mental health and a lot of other things, and the results were stunning. And all across Shed Row there are stories of how people came to build the bikes, and the things in there were just outrageous. Just a few of the ones that I can remember. There was Max Brown. He had his Honda Cub with the ammo box sidecar that got loads of attention, and I remember there was a green Triumph Tracker, which was a sort of mule-inspired flat track Bonneville, and Dutch was literally walking around the show trying to find the owner to buy it off him. It was, again, a stunning build, but yeah, Shed Row was special last year. Another standout from Shed Row was Harry's Pit Racer. Now this stood out because it was tiny. It was a kid's bike. It was the smallest bike on display at the show, and I'd seen this bike before being ragged around at Mallet Mile by Harry, and this was a lockdown project for him. Homeschooling done right. Brilliant little build. It had artwork on the tail section, and you just looked at it and thought, this is going to inspire kids to do this and the next generation of bike builders. So much so, this year we're going to do a whole wheel of kids' bikes. So if your kid's building a bike, if you're building a bike for your kid, get it submitted. We want to show more kids' bikes at this year's show. Bike number 5 was also on Shed Row, this time downstairs in the vaults. We took on more space at Tobacco Dock this year, and this proved to be one of my favourite rooms. It was absolutely stunning, and some of the machines in there were incredible, including the R107 compressor. This bike was built by a Formula One engineer who did this in his downtime, and it showed. There was always a crowd of people around this bike just staggered by what had been done. So it was a 1070cc big bore pistons in here, and it had methanol injection, and there was a custom designed and manufactured billet engine case to cover everything. I mean, it was what you'd expect to see if an F1 engineer went to work on a 1992 BMW. It was outrageous. Also in that room, there was a fabulous bike that was built on an old Norton Atlas frame with a 1930s Harley engine in it, and I remember the guy that made it, It was his first build. Who combines a 30s Harley and a Norton Atlas for their first build? It was beautiful. And oh yeah, there was the turquoise tracker, do you remember that? The KTM 950 tracker built by Otis, and it was, the pop of colour on it was outrageous, and it just, again, a bike that I would have loved to have taken for a ride. And that one actually came in with cling film around its tyres, which I think that was the first time I'd seen that happen at the show. We're not really that level of perfection at our show, but it was a stunning build. Also downstairs we had the rally room, which was a really exciting addition to the show this year, and in there we had Sam Sunderland's Dakar bike. I confess that was the one bike that I climbed on after hours. I wanted to have a little sit on that one, and it was a phenomenal thing. Talking of race bikes, we also had one of Valentino Rossi's bikes in the race room, which was really cool to have there. I mean, Vicky was always stood next to it. She loves Valentino Rossi. Speaking of race bikes, bike number 6 was a 1970 Harley Davidson XR 750. This was an immaculate build. This was number 24 off the first year of production of this bike, and everything on it was original. This was by no means a custom bike whatsoever. It's kind of partly encapsulates the past, present, future theme we're running this year, because iconic bikes like that and the inspiration that comes from them for all the builds today and tomorrow is just ongoing. This bike came to the show on the back of a Porsche. This was pretty much the coolest hauler you will ever see. I think it was a 944, and he had it on a rig at the back. I didn't see it, but I heard about it because everyone was like, "Did you see that?" And yeah, it was a stunning build. And the best thing about it is it races and it's, yeah, used. That flat track corner next to the sideburn area had some incredible bikes in it. We also had the Trackmaster Triumph and the Moto Edits Larry TT500 in like 70s purple, and there was Amp Partridge had his Rotax framer in that corner as well, which is again Larry and fun. Yeah, it was a really standout corner of the show. Next up, we have the Super 7 from Night Moto. Now, I'm in awe when I walk around the show at what people can create, but anyone that makes their own frame for their bike is just another level to me. I'm like, how do you do that? And this was based around an MT07. Again, not a bike that many people are using as a donor, but he'd created this beautiful sinuous frame around peach of an engine, and the details on it, every time I walked past it, there was something else that stopped me, from the paint job to the execution of the fabrication. It was beautifully done. There was a few bikes at the show that I kept coming back to and seeing new bits on every time, and one of them was the Foundry Moto Guzzi in that room. Now again, I love watching the process of Foundry building his bikes on Instagram, and the way he fabricates things is just so fantastic. And this was a bike, I can't even tell you that many details about it, but I just kept coming back and looking at new bits on it, and I just loved it. Bike number 8 was a Ducati called Ghost from For the Bold Industries. And I'm a sucker for a Ducati Monster. It's probably my all-time favorite stock motorcycle. But the thing that really got me about this bike was it got me early. I was following the build on Instagram a long time before the show. Ant, who built the bike, he was sharing the process he was going through of creating this one single piece bodywork, and he started in cardboard and then eventually in carbon fiber, and seeing the process of the build from sort of the early stages right through to the finished product at the show is so satisfying. And yeah, it was a hell of a thing in the flesh when it was finished. Bike number 9 is 69 from Sticky Speed Shop, and this bike sticks in my head because it was the very last bike that we got in place at the show. It was late on Friday night, the place was buzzing, it was still full, but Matt, Sticky Matt, who built this bike, he'd helped us with so many things throughout the course of the show that he didn't even get to get his bikes in time for the doors opening. But yeah, number 69 came in last hours on the Friday, and I was helping him, and I was slightly broken by this point, and I couldn't find the side stand on the bike, and I just knelt down next to it for about 20 minutes. So while I was there, I got to have a really good look at it, and this is a sort of bandit-based chopper with a turbo and this aluminium fairing. It was a stunning bike. Matt bought a couple of bikes in at the same time, including Widow Liquor, which was the GSXR that we've had in residence at the shed for a little while, and this had paint work that he'd done with Ryan Quickfall, had done the artwork on it, and these two bikes, I just loved them, and they were, yeah, the very last to come through the doors. And they were actually, number 69 was part of the turbo wheel, which we'd not had at the show before, and this had the funny bike on it. It's called funny bike, which was the sort of 20-foot long yellow drag bike, and we also had Ashley's brutal looking turbo bandit on one side and the slingshot on the other side. Yeah, there was a lot of horsepower in that wheel. If you're still with us, well done. Bike number 10 is the Surrey Speed Shop Bobber. Now this was, it said on the plaque, 1952-ish Triumph Speed Twin, and this bike literally looked like it could just come out of the back of the barn. The patina on it, it looked old and knackered, but it also looked incredible, the length of it and the proportions of it, and I'm sure it ran like a clock, because when you really looked at it, everything was perfect. They just hadn't disturbed the original patina that had developed on the bike, and there was a lot of custom work on it, and I loved it. But the thing that really sticks in my mind about this bike was where it was placed in the show. Behind it, through the glass wall of Tobacco Dock, was LM Creations' electric tracker, and the two of these bikes lined up. I just love that a show exists where they're both in the same or the adjacent rooms, and that kind of encapsulated our show. And the image of that bike with that bike behind it is pretty much the core inspiration of Past, Present and Future, which is the theme of the 2023 show, which is coming very soon. So there you have it. That was my 10 memorable bikes from
27. You listed 27. I counted.
27. Okay. Yeah, so that was my 27 memorable bikes from the 2022 show. I mean, to be honest, we had over 300 bikes at the show last year, and I can remember so many of them. They were outstanding. Submissions for this year's show are open. We've already had some incredible machines, but please submit yours. I can't wait to see them, and I also can't wait to see you at our show, end of May. Get your tickets at bikeshedmotoshow.com. We'll see you there. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to check out all of our other Road to the Show content and everything else on our YouTube channel. Please like, follow and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.